Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. This is The Hill on News Nation. So, did Gavin Newsom just actually take a page out of the Trump playbook? Why the California governor now says he is ramping up law enforcement in some of the biggest cities in his state. And right here in the district, the president continuing to say, you're fired. A big court hearing to come tomorrow for a fired Fed official, and the White House with this response today on key health officials who are now out.
It was President Trump who was overwhelmingly reelected on November 5th. This woman has never received a vote in her life, and the president has the authority to fire those who are not aligned with his mission.
Also tonight, here on the Hill, was a CIA agent's identity revealed. Did the director of national intelligence publicly name an undercover CIA agent? What intelligence officials are telling News Nation tonight. And finally, you could say, finally, college football is back. I'll explain why Congress is about to huddle up, potentially trying to pass a new law with big implications for your alma mater. But first tonight, here from the Hill, the big cities better get ready. That is part of the message from the White House tonight. A naval base in Chicago, potentially a new staging ground for immigration efforts, as the border czar also put several cities on alert.
You're going to see a ramp up of operations in New York. You're going to see a ramp up of operations continue in L.A. And, Portland, Seattle. I mean, all these sanctuary cities that refuse to work with ICE. Chicago has a crime problem. That's why President Trump's thinking about it.
So what might that effort look like? Ron Vitello, senior advisor to the administration, with me in a moment. But first, to our Kelly Meyer live at the White House once again for us tonight. Hello, Kelly.
Hey there, Blake. And that really follows up on what DHS Secretary Kristi Noem told me the other day, that a strike team was going to Chicago, quote, soon. So we're learning more about that, as well as White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt today. When we were in the briefing, she was talking a lot about the president's crime crackdown right here in Washington, D.C., calling it Trump's D.C., quote, intervention, listing off the latest stats. So since the start of his takeover of D.C. on August 7th, the White House says there have been 1,283 arrests, 9 known gang members arrested, 5 missing children rescued, 135 firearms seized, and 50 homeless encampments cleared. She also mentioned how D.C.'s mayor credited President Trump for surging federal law enforcement and that neighborhoods felt safer here. She also says other states' leaders should take Trump up on his offer.
It is a priority of this administration to ensure that American cities are safe again. And we've been seeing the governor of Illinois parading out there saying that there's nothing wrong with Chicago. It's a great place to live. There's no crime there. He doesn't need President Trump's help. Well, I think the residents of Chicago beg to differ, and the statistics beg to differ.
And President Trump writing earlier today on True Social that, quote, the people are desperate for me to stop the crime, and, quote, stay tuned. So we know, as you mentioned, a surge of immigration enforcement is coming to cities like Chicago, New York, and L.A., Tom Homan telling News Nation today. But Trump has yet to say whether or not the National Guard will be headed to the Windy City. Blake.
Stay tuned. All right, our Kelly Meyer live tonight on the North Lawn. Kelly, thank you. So as the administration eyes the Windy City possibly as its next target for a crime crackdown, stepped up immigration operations could be on the way there as well. The border czar, Tom Homan, telling reporters this morning a quote unquote large contingent of immigration officers could be headed to Chicago soon for ICE operations. It's part of a push to increase immigration actions in some of the country's biggest so-called sanctuary cities. So what are we about to see here, potentially in the upcoming days and weeks? With me now, Ron Vitello, Senior Advisor for Customs and Border Protection, with us once again tonight here on the Hill. Ron, thanks for being with us. We heard from Tom Homan about this naval base in Chicago, north of downtown there on the lake, that could be used for immigration detention. What's the vision there? What can you tell us about it?
Well, the Department of Defense has been helping CBP at the physical border and helping ICE in the interior as well. So protecting our agents while they worked in Los Angeles, as an example. And so using them or having military space to house detainees like we're doing in El Paso on Fort Bliss. This is consistent with where we're going on the ICE, where ICE is going on their side to scale up the detention and removal operations, including interior arrests.
So, but what about this site there in Chicago? How big could this be? What's sort of the bigger vision here?
Well, there's millions of people who live in Chicago, and it's a lot of territory to cover. So when and if DHS and ICE deploy there, they're going to need sufficient resources, both for the agents and the officers that are working there, as well as the people they take into custody.
You say when and if. Do you have a sense of when the when might be?
I have no idea. But this is going to happen in every city in America, right? Why are we doing this? During the previous administration, their own records say 11 million people came into the United States. The secretary himself said 85% of them were released into the United States. That's why this is ongoing. The president ran on securing the border and having the largest deportation effort we've ever seen. This is part and parcel of what will happen, not just in Chicago. We saw it in LA. We see it now in DC. That's part of the deployment now. And it'll be that way in every other city in America.
I just wonder if this naval base that's going to be used potentially for immigration efforts there is just sort of setting up this larger operation in Chicago, whether it be immigration efforts or crime with the National Guard.
Well, it depends on what happens, right? Because they're going to go out there, they're going to deploy. These teams are going to go out and look for the worst of the worst in neighborhoods around Chicago, around like they did in LA, like they're going to do in New York. And so having resources at the base or have the base warmed up for resources is just proper planning.
We heard from Gavin Newsom today, the California governor. I want to play a little bit for you what he said and get your reaction on the other side.
If the president is sincere about the issue of crime and violence, there's no question in my mind that he'll likely be sending the troops into Louisiana and Mississippi to address the unconscionable wave of violence that continues to plague those states.
What would you say to the governor there?
Well, I think he needs to concentrate on the job he has right now, which is being the governor of California. We know that they have real issues with homelessness and crime in Los Angeles. I don't think he's in a place to tell the president how to secure anything.
But I think it gets to the question of how this administration chooses where it goes and when.
Well, they went to Los Angeles to protect federal assets and federal agents that were performing their legal duties inside of the city.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it there. Ron Vitello, senior advisor to the administration. Ron, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Nice to see you as always. All right. So across the country, law enforcement ramping up, including, as you just heard there, in California, where the Democratic governor could be pulling, I guess you could call it, a hard right turn. Newsom announcing today that he is deploying, quote unquote, crime suppression teams across the state. Now, they'll focus on some of the biggest cities and areas out there in California, including San Diego, Los Angeles, Sacramento, and throughout the Bay Area. The governor saying today the teams use data to suppress crime in some areas, conduct operations to disrupt organized crime, increase presence in the state's most crime-ridden communities, support local law enforcement, for example, and create strict accountability across the state. Here's what he said in part earlier today.
Success is a direction. There is no having made it as it relates to the issue of crime suppression. That's why in California, we continue to build on not just these partnerships, but over $1.7 billion of resources that we have provided under our public safety plan in this state since 2019.
All right, with me now, former D.C. Democratic Party Chairman, NewsNation contributor Scott Bolden, and former senior aide to Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Linda Tran. Hello to you both. Hello. Thanks for being with me. I get this email dropped into my inbox, Linda, this afternoon. Gavin Newsom deploys new teams to fight crime in major California cities, building on successful efforts. And I'm going, wait a minute here. Is he trying to parlay off of the thing that Donald Trump is talking about right now? What's going on?
Well, so I wish I had talked to his team and heard more about their strategy. But from the outside, what I think is happening is he's trying to pull back this whole framing about being tough on crime. Okay. I will point out, though, this is not the first time that Governor Newsom has decided to do this sort of increased presence and this approach on crime. They did the same thing in San Bernardino late last year and had some good results there, which he also touted.
Well, it's not about Trump, actually. I think it makes good politics and good policy for the governor. He's doing what he's supposed to do. The Democrats don't want crime to be run rampant in Democratic or red states, quite frankly. They want to continue to push for safe neighborhoods and for people to feel safe. And so this idea, the Trump narrative about we're going to put ICE agents down there to fight crime, that means that everyone who's in this country illegally is a violent criminal, and that's just not the case.
What Gavin Newsom is doing here is he's expanding the deployment of the California Highway Patrol.
Yeah.
So you're good with it if it's the Highway Patrol, but not good with it if it's ICE and the National Guard? Is it sort of pick your agency?
I'm good with the state agencies in that surge. If Donald Trump called up Gavin Newsom and said, listen, we want to help, we want to partner with you and work with you on strategically placing federal agents to support what you're doing to keep crime down and make Americans feel safe, I don't think that he would have a problem
Why aren't you good with the federal agencies?
I'm not good with the federal agencies because with Donald Trump comes chaos and how he implements it. Just like how he's implementing the anti-immigration policy, people don't want people who are not violent criminals to be hustled off the street and taken to far-off places with no identification and no idea on when they're going to come back. If all they did was come here illegally and haven't committed a crime, we don't need federal ICE agents to be masked and be taking people off the street. Those people are waiting for hearings, most of them. Most of them are waiting for hearings, and they got a right to wait for those hearings.
There's also just a difference, too, between deploying the National Guard, which is explicitly legally not supposed to be deployed as a civilian law enforcement entity, and for Gavin Newsom to decide that the actual state law enforcement should be participating, supporting these things.
Here's the question, though.
It's illegal.
I posed this question on this show last night because Muriel Bowser, the mayor here in Washington, expressed views that were positive of what the president was doing. And I said last night, if Muriel Bowser's first, I wonder who's next. And Gavin Newsom kind of like opened that door a little bit, and it makes you wonder if more Democrats are going to move in this direction.
Well, he opened the door in that he obviously thinks that crime should be addressed, and it's a good thing when crime goes down. But what Muriel Bowser also said is that the broader impact of having ICE agents descend on D.C., the National Guardsmen armed in D.C. with their armored vehicles, is actually not good for the community.
And they're not in these high crime areas where they're being deployed in D.C. And remember, D.C. is a federal enclave, right?
Yep.
He has a right to do that possibly, but he can't do that in the other major cities in the independent states.
Hear from you both later in the show. Linda Scott, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Still to come. Here on the Hill tonight, is Congress ready for regulating some college football? Thank goodness. Football is back, America, and we are all better for it. But is Congress actually going to jump in to something that matters to your alma mater? Other side of the break, the lawmaker who is spearheading the effort. I'll explain. And did the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, expose an undercover CIA agent? What News Nation is learning tonight. I thank you for being with us here on the Hill. I'm Blake Burman. I'll see you back here, other side of the break, 4 minutes away. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation. I'm ready for some football. A lot of you are probably ready for some football. What about Congress? Colleges and universities, as you might know, kicking off the college football season. Week 1 starts tonight. But as lawmakers gear up for their return here to the nation's capital next week, some members are looking to play ball on new college sports legislation. It's called the SCORE Act, and it looks to roll back some restrictions on name, image, and likeness contracts for students, preventing students from losing scholarships due to injury, mandating schools pay for health care coverage for ex-athletes to up to 3 years after they graduate, and prevent student fees from supporting athletics. Now, the infusion of money into college sports and allowing athletes to be paid has thrown colleges completely off sides. They're trying to figure all this out. Some say amateurism, as we know it, is now dead. But some lawmakers are voicing opposition to the bill. For example, in a statement earlier this week, the Washington Democratic Senator Maria Cantwell laid out her concerns, raising questions about what support for legislation could look like in the Senate. And it all comes after the president weighed in just a few weeks ago on the need for regulation in college sports.
Women's sports are being totally decimated. We know that, Annika, with this. It's all going into football, and some to basketball, and everything else is being left behind.
All right, so if you follow college sports, you know the term name, image, and likeness. Congressman Gus Bilirakis is the one leading the effort in the House on the SCORE Act with us tonight here on the Hill. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. So I laid out.
Blake.
Yes, thank you. I laid out some of the backdrop, but the reality is that the Supreme Court, basically took a sledgehammer to the idea that these college students can't be paid, right? And then now money's pouring in from all over. The NCAA is weakened, and they've come to Congress and basically said, help us out here. What's next as you understand it?
Well, first of all, I want to protect the student athlete. That's the number one thing. We do need guardrails, Blake. There's no question. And because of the court decisions, we will have revenue sharing. And also you'll have the name, image, likeness, but it'll be true name, image, likeness. Right now, it's pay for play. We have to cut that out. We have professional football teams. We have professional basketball teams, et cetera. We need to preserve college athletics the way we knew it was. Now, these athletes need a little money, and we're going to do that, but it's going to be reasonable. We want to protect the athlete, the safety concerns. Education should be a priority as well. So we're going to put guardrails, and that's what the SCORE Act does. Now, we've gotten a lot of input the last few months, and I think it's a darn good bill. I know that Senator Cantwell has issued a letter to the NCAA and the schools. She needs to come to me, and let's work this out and get it done in a bipartisan fashion. This should not be a partisan bill. They
are student athletes. They are also adults, right? And it brings up the question. I mean, I've got several of them. But if they are adults, we don't regulate the nursing students or the math majors. Why does Congress need to step in here?
Well, first of all, we need preemption because every state has its own laws, and that's not fair. And they pass these particular laws, the legislatures do, to favor their particular universities. So that's not fair. And we need some limited liability protection. Anytime, and I'm not taking the NCAA side, believe me, but anytime they make a move, there's a lawsuit. So this particular bill gives limited, I want to put the emphasis on limited liability protection. But if they do not comply with the statute, the universities, what have you, then there won't be any, they'll be subject to lawsuits. So, well thought out. We have to protect the Olympic sports. That's so very important. I put that in the bill to make sure that each university buys in to this, revenue sharing, we want to make sure that the Olympic sports are protected. So they have to keep at least 16 sports.
Have you heard from
just college?
Yeah. Have you heard from Mike Johnson? Is he going to bring this forward? Do you think you have support from 60 in the Senate?
Well, I'm working on it. I'm making phone calls to Democrats. They're listening to me, and I've given them an opportunity to give me input, and we've improved the bill. That's how you get it done. But Mike Johnson, is a supporter of the bill. So is Steve Scalise, the majority leader as well. So when I get back on Tuesday, I'm going to have a meeting with at least Steve and see how we can improve the bill even more and schedule it for a vote. I know Senator Cruz is working really hard on this. I've talked to him as well. We're going to need all Republicans in the Senate and at least 7 Democrats.
Okay.
So, again, if Cantwell has a problem with the bill, don't go to the press. Don't write letters to the NCAA. Come to me because I'm the only one who has sponsored a bill in the House, and it's passed the subcommittee as well as the full committee. So it's pretty much ready for the floor, but we will make some changes.
Okay.
But my door is always open, and Democrats know that.
All right. Gus Bilirakis, the member of Congress behind this. It is a big issue in the sports world. Congress has taken it up. I know you're a Gators fan. Good luck, sir. I leave you by saying go blue. Enjoy the weekend.
I'll be at the game Saturday.
All right. Have fun. All right, still
Thank
much
you.
more ahead tonight, of course, here on the Hill. How about this question? Did the Director of National Intelligence tell the world about an undercover CIA agent? What NewsNation is being told tonight about that very question when the Hill returns. All right, 6:30 here in Washington. Welcome back to the Hill on News Nation. So did the Director of National Intelligence just put an American potentially at risk? News Nation is learning tonight that a list published online by Tulsi Gabbard included the name of an undercover CIA agent assigned to Russia. Former CIA agent and author of The Unexpected Spy, Tracy Walder, joins me in moments. Meantime, Russia launching yet another deadly overnight attack in Ukraine, despite recent talks between President Trump and Vladimir Putin in Alaska. At least a dozen locations were hit directly. And here's some of the aftermath today. You can see it inside Kyiv. A strike on a residential building in the capital there. The White House asked about it, saying this.
I know what the president thinks because I talked to him about this. He was not happy about this news, but he was also not surprised. These are two countries that have been at war for a very long time. Russia launched this attack on Kyiv, and likewise, Ukraine recently dealt a blow to Russia's oil refineries.
Robert Sherman live tonight in the heart of Ukraine for us once again. Robert, we've had all these talks, Trump and Putin, Trump and Zelensky, and the hope was that it was getting closer to some sort of a ceasefire or a deal. And then this happens.
Yeah, Blake, I mean, this is one of the biggest strikes that we've seen on Ukraine since the start of this war. We're talking about nearly 600 drones, over 30 missiles. The death toll has been rising throughout the day, hour by hour. Currently stands at 22. We were there at that site here today in which you see residential areas, no military sites, devastated. As eyewitnesses on the ground say, just rocked whole blocks at a time. Take a listen.
Big bangs in the distance, machine gun fire, and the sound of Shahid drones. It sounded like lawnmowers flying over. My window completely came through. All the doors were smashed off the hinges because of the shockwave. From that, big cloud of dust came in everywhere. I was coughing, filled my lungs.
Among the sites that took damage overnight, the European Union building, as well as the British Council. And as a result, we saw the EU and the UK summoning the Russian ambassador in both Belgium and the UK in light of that diplomatic moment there. In terms of where the diplomacy goes from here, tomorrow, supposed to be a Ukrainian delegation on the ground in the United States meeting Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to talk about security guarantees and trying to get Russia and Ukraine to the negotiating table. The Kremlin today says the attacks will continue, but they are still interested in keeping these peace negotiations going. There's one world leader here in Europe today who said at this point they think Russia is making a mockery of these peace talks. Blake?
Robert Sherman, appreciate you. Stay safe over there. Robert Sherman, live tonight in Ukraine for us. Also tonight, was an undercover CIA operative outed? Now, just days ago, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, posted a list of 37 intelligence officials in which had their security clearances revoked over their alleged involvement in what the administration has labeled the quote-unquote Russia hoax. She said she did so at the president's request. And on that public list, for all to see, a CIA officer. A source telling News Nation tonight that there was, quote, no meaningful coordination with the CIA before the announcement was made. A spokesperson for Gabbard's office, however, denies those claims. The Daily Mail is reporting tonight that the agent in question was public-facing and did not have their cover blown. News Nation national security contributor, former CIA agent, author of The Unexpected Spy, Tracy Walder, with me tonight. Tracy, thanks for being with us. I should mention Tracy ex-FBI as well. Make sense of all of this for me, Tracy. This was a big story in the Wall Street Journal that first came about this morning.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Blake. I view this as problematic, obviously, as a former CIA officer who did work undercover. And let me explain why. First of all, if they want to strip the security clearances of individuals, that is something that they can do. But the problem is when you do leak people's names or publish people's names, which is what she did in this case on social media in that memo, you do need to coordinate with the CIA and ensure that there will be no physical damage to these individuals whose names are being shared, as well as no damages to any assets that they may be handling overseas. And this person could have been public facing. I don't know for sure. But the problem is even if they are public facing, it may not be known that this individual actually was working for the CIA.
You'll remember Valerie Plame, right? 20 something years ago, who had her identity leaked. And that was a massive story at that point in time. In your view, is this in the ballpark of that or different?
I think the answer is it depends. I actually worked in the same office as Valerie Plame when it was all going on, to be completely honest. So it was obviously an interesting time to be there. In my opinion, the leak of Plame's name was purposeful and it felt revengeful. I don't know in this case. I do know that there has been a lot of movement within the agency, people being hired, people being fired, particularly individuals in the Russia branch or in the Eastern European division. That is suspect to me. And so I have to wonder, this person's name was released in that list. And this person, from what I understand, spent 20 years working in this Russia division. And so it all seems to be connected to that. And that's concerning.
You could maybe make an argument, and one of the first things I thought this morning when I read this was, well, clearly there are some folks over at the CIA who are unhappy with Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence. I think that's fairly obvious. Could you ask the question, though, or at least make the argument maybe that some within the intelligence community are undermining her?
That's a hard thing to say because I don't work there anymore and I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I worked under two different political administrations when I was there. One I voted for, one I did not vote for, and I never purposely undermined them. I think that's a huge problem to national security. If people are doing that, that's problematic and they probably need to leave. It's not okay to undermine someone like that. There is a proper way to do that. And in my opinion, you're putting national security at risk. Do I respect Tulsi Gabbard's service to our country? I do. She served in the military and she did so valiantly. However, I do have concerns about her being DNI. I have voiced that and people at the CIA have voiced that, but it's not okay to undermine her.
All right, we'll leave it there. Tracy Walder, author of The Unexpected Spy, News Nation contributor, ex-CIA, ex-FBI. Tracy, always a pleasure. Thanks so much. Talk soon.
Thank you, Blake.
Of course. All right, still to come tonight here on The Hill. You're fired. You know the catchphrase, right? Long before Donald Trump was President Trump. But in the aftermath of his recent firings, he's been accused of whether or not some of this is government overreach, or is he doing what his predecessor did? Full panel, other side of the break. There's a big court hearing to come on some of this.
A News Nation exclusive, a secret government experiment exposed.
My government used me like I was a guinea pig.
An alleged cover-up spanning generations.
Is there a sense of betrayal here?
Definitely.
News Nation investigates tonight, 7/6 Central.
All right, welcome back here to The Hill on News Nation. You know that. It was one thing when Donald Trump was once saying you're fired to reality TV celebrities, but in the aftermath of the firing of Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, the latest recipient of Trump's notorious catchphrase was the director of the CDC, Susan Monteras, ousted yesterday after reportedly getting into an argument with the HHS Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., in which she refused to rescind certain COVID vaccine policies. Now, to some, like the former HHS Secretary under Joe Biden, this is just all politics.
We right now are losing our best scientists, and this is only because of politics.
And you might say that in a strange way, the White House kind of sort of agrees.
The secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't. So the president fired her, which he has every right to do. It was President Trump who was overwhelmingly reelected on November 5th. This woman has never received a vote in her life.
But before a declaration of quote unquote government overreach, as some might say, consider these people who were appointed to their positions during President Trump's first term and subsequently fired by President Biden. So are the current president's latest firings any different? And if so, how? Full panel here with me now. Scott Bolden back once again, News Nation political contributor. Linda Tran, former senior advisor to the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Lauren Tomlinson, former deputy assistant secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. And Lance Trover, the former spokesperson for Doug Burgum's presidential campaign. Hello to you all. Thanks again for being in. I'll start on this side of the table. The president's letting all these folks go. Any issue with what he's doing or how he's doing it?
No, particularly with the CDC director. I mean, that is a political appointee position. It wasn't even a Senate confirmed position until 2023 when they changed the law. So to me, this is, he's going through, if people aren't on board with his agenda, then he has the right to make sure that people are going to be supporting him. The Fed chair obviously is a different story because, the Fed governor. Yeah, the Fed governor, because
that's
independent,
yeah,
never happened before. You have to do it with cause. That is something separate. If they can make the argument that it's with cause, though, I think the broader argument here is these government folks need to be accountable to the people in the same way. We can't have an unelected class of bureaucrats running around making decisions that aren't accountable to the American people. So the pressure that he is putting on the system to make sure that we have the best people in place and that they are actually accountable and doing what the people want, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think this is exactly what voters voted for. No one walked into a voting booth last November and said, oh, gee, what's Donald Trump going to do? They knew he was going to take a sledgehammer to this town and to the bureaucracy. I think this is all a bunch of inside the Beltway speak. I don't think a voter out there cares because they know, to your point, that there is an unelected bureaucracy that has controlled this town for ages. And I think voters are sick of it because they don't think it's working for them.
Well, you can't in regard to the CDC director, let's be honest, this is pure politics. And you shouldn't, even if you have a legal right to terminate someone based on their politics or disagreement. Think about it. You should be able to disagree with the leadership. It makes the agency stronger. And more importantly, you had 3 or 4 other people, scientists, substantive scientists who were great in their position who resigned as well. And they had 1,000 people out there protesting, not because of the politics or disagreements, but because the depth and substance of the organization and the expertise and the leadership is suffering. He's going to lose tomorrow in court on the federal.
I want to get to that in a second. Is this any different than what Joe Biden did when he came in and a bunch of Trump folks from the first term gone? See ya?
Yeah, it's absolutely different. If you stay till the end of a term, you're a holdover. Technically, if as a former political appointee, you resign at the end of the administration. People who don't choose to resign, they do it kind of as a protest, and then it's a normal process that they are, quote, terminated at the end. So that's very different than deciding that 1 month into somebody's tenure, a person that you picked, you're removing because they're not aligned with you. And I would say that the thing is, all of this sounds very, very reasonable. However, where the red flags come up are the reasons that she said she disagreed with RFK Jr. and the reasons that those directors, her deputies who also resigned in protest said, which is specifically that they weren't following the science and they were making decisions without even reviewing the data.
Here's what I noticed, and tell me if you think I'm onto something here. In the first term, because I remember every Friday it was like you can't leave because someone's gone. Folks who were gone in the first year: Sean Spicer, Reince Priebus, Anthony Scaramucci, Steve Bannon, Sebastian Gorka, and Cabinet Secretary Tom Price. This time around, the only person who's left, correct me if I'm missing someone here, is Michael Waltz, and he was given just a different job after the whole, the phone scandal thing. So is the difference now that Trump has basically said, you know what, in the first term, I let a bunch of people go. Now I'm letting the people go from the other side of the aisle. And that's sort of the lesson learned or the difference from him.
Yeah, I think the difference is Trump 1.0 did not know, he was not a political animal. He was not a seasoned politician. He did not have a group of people around him that were aligned with his agenda and where he was going. He was kind of figuring it out as he goes because he was new to the role. Trump 2.0, he has had a long time to establish a campaign apparatus, a political movement, and people who are aligned with where he is philosophically and politically. So I think that's actually the biggest difference and why you don't think see a lot of change.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, they were prepared when they came in on day one. And you've seen, I mean, he has done so much.
Were they, though?
Oh, absolutely.
Because, I mean, to Linda's point, they just fired the CDC head after
Well,
one month.
I think that's a wrinkle. But to your point, no one's really left the administration. If this person, I mean, is one of the very few that have been gone, to your point. And compared to the first administration, there was a lot of turnover. He has who he wants in place. They were ready on day one, and that, yeah.
So Linda Cook, she's the Fed governor, Scott, who Trump fired. She is going before a court tomorrow. Here's what the president said, and then I want to jump into that.
She seems to have had an infraction, and she can't have an infraction, especially that infraction, because she's in charge of, if you think about it, mortgages, and we need people that are 100% above board, and it doesn't seem like she was.
The judge that she's going before was appointed by Joe Biden. The judge had also already ruled against Trump's mass deportation policy. Is tomorrow's headline tonight, judge overrules Trump. Is that where this is headed?
I think so, because he's got the Supreme Court behind this Federal Reserve appointee as well. She's independent, and when the Supreme Court, in one of their prior decisions recently, in the last couple of months, gave him the power to terminate executives at independent agencies, they specifically, in their opinion, carved out the Federal Reserve as being different. And so he doesn't have the power to fire the chairman.
The chairman.
And he doesn't have the power to fire someone who's on the board as well.
For cause they can.
Okay, for cause. So there's an allegation that she made an error or had some criminal intent, unproven at this point, and he's going to fire her over an allegation. That's pretty rich coming from Donald Trump.
Yeah, so are you good with accuse first, fire, and then figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're about to figure this out in the courts, but I mean, I think that it's not just an accusation. They have the documents that she claimed twice, and it was tax fraud.
They have the documents. What you don't have yet is the argument from both sides, from the defense, really, from her.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is probably the part that is going to be tested in the courts, is like exactly when you can fire someone. But the fact that there is cause, if this is proven to be true, I mean, so then we're talking about like the order of it, or I mean, it seems like she did it. The paperwork's there.
No, it doesn't seem like she's done it. I've defended lots of these cases. The fact that you fill out inconsistent information on a bank loan form, the language on some of these bank loan forms said that you filled it out to the best of your knowledge. And in and of itself, even if she was wrong or mistaken, doesn't make that criminal conduct or criminal intent.
You had another house that you were living in?
People do it all the time. 90% of the people who fill out these forms, I guarantee you, they're inactive.
Are we going to roll back? She
did it like 3 weeks later.
Like 3 weeks after she bought the first house. I mean, what was she doing?
And by the way, she's got every right to defend herself. And why should she get fired over an allegation? You can't get around that.
People get fired over allegations all the time.
And they get sued. The employers get sued, too.
If we go through the tape, am I finding you saying the same thing about Trump?
What about Trump?
In the cases against him when it came to his property.
Well, he was prosecuted, and he was found guilty in New York, and he was prosecuted in other jurisdictions. They had substantial evidence, but he had due process, and the courts, it was making its way through the courts until he won, of course, and then they walked away from it because it was his administration. Okay. No different.
All right. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Still to come tonight here on The Hill. You are not going to believe how much faster Amtrak's newest, fastest train will now be to travel. I don't know why we're showing Caroline Levitt. We got off that quick, speaking of time. Amtrak today, they made a pretty big announcement about the future. And I'm going to show you what the future looks like, and you might have your head scratching after I show you what they unveiled today. That's my take, plus what's trending on the other side of the break. Stay with us. All right, Elizabeth Vargas reports just 3 minutes away here on News Nation. Elizabeth will be talking to a former friend of the gunman who just shot at that school in Minneapolis. 2 children, as you know, killed in that shooting. She will tell us how the red flags were there for years. That's coming up on Elizabeth Vargas Reports, just a couple minutes right here on News Nation. All right, if you're just getting home tonight, trying to catch up on some of the top stories that are currently being searched the most on thehill.com, here's just a few of them. Again, Minneapolis, the shooting survivor said to be in a, quote, state of complete fear. I say survivor. Of course, there are many of them, dozens, hundreds of kids and their families and their parents trying to figure it out and how to talk to their children from here on out. The day after, really, there in Minneapolis. Also trending on the Hill tonight, how about this in the political world? Trump mulls GOP convention before midterms. The Democrats talking about this as well. The president brings it up, and on we go. And then there's this. New York Times angers readers with mini crossword paywall. Don't mess with the crossword. Some folks not thrilled about that. If you want to check out those stories, all you have to do, head on over to thehill.com or scan the QR code on your screen. All right. Time for my take now, and if you're a regular viewer here on The Hill, thank you. You also know that this is the point in the show where I often point out American exceptionalism, advancements in technology, and so on. But every so often, the government does something that results in not only a take tonight, but also something that had me doing a double take earlier today. How about this headline right here? Amtrak is launching its faster next-gen Acela train with better amenities after years of delays. But when you go past the headline, quote, the new trains will replace the current Acela equipment, increasing the top speed from 150 miles per hour to 160 miles per hour. So Amtrak fans, you could look forward to that 3-hour and 8-minute Acela trip from DC to New York, and now it's 2 hours and 50-something minutes, whatever the difference might be. Now, there will be better Wi-Fi, the seats will be wider, and there will be more of them. But consider this. We just watched Elon Musk launch a Statue of Liberty-sized spaceship into orbit. And 2 days later, the government boasts about a train that goes 10 miles per hour faster. Something feels a little off, right? And by the way, in China, their high-speed train goes 286 miles per hour. In Japan, tested even more than that. Amtrak's Acela, the fastest train, provides service to some 70 million passengers. It has over the last 25 years. And I'm not here to say it should travel at the speed of light, but maybe the government at some point will be able to say all aboard to some serious innovation. I thank you for watching us. I'm Blake Burman. See you tomorrow.